In this video, I'm going to be editing this photo from beginning to end in Lightroom and Photoshop. So right now we're in Lightroom. Let's click this top right button to get the editor pulled out. I want to just increase the exposure a little bit, increase the contrast a bit, bring down those highlights just a touch, and then bring down the shadows. We want to bring down the whites a touch, and then the blacks, we want to darken those a bit. So bring those down as well. Next, we can go to the point curve. Let's see what we can do with this. So already it's looking drastically different, and I think that's a really cool look. We can pull back some of the light on her face, but I like this kind of low fade. So that's the curve I'm gonna go with. Next, I want to do some skin correction using the temperature, and I think your skin looks about right here. Let's go to the tint, and we can decide we want just like a little more purple, not too much, maybe around 15 would be good. Now let's go to the vibrance. We want to bring up the vibrance to about 15. Pull the saturation down to -4, and we can bring this up a little more. I'd say 35 is good, 30 is good. Great. Now let's go to our color correction on the color mixer. So for the reds, what I want to do is make them a little purple, so just -4, and then we don't want to do too much for saturation, so let's just do +2 and luminance at -4. For the oranges, that's really going to affect your skin. Let's just bring it up a little bit, make it a little more red. And then the luminance is actually fine right where it is. Now we can go to the yellows. So we can make that light orange if we want, or we can make it more yellow. But I think just kind of leaving it where it is and increasing the saturation, making it a little more orange is what I'll probably do. Now let's go to the greens. I don't see any greens in the photo, so let's bring all the greens out. Cyan, we're gonna see maybe on her pants, but nothing is really changing, so we'll bring all the cyan out. Next, we'll go to the blues, and now we'll see her pants change. So I'm just gonna bring down the saturation, make them a little more blue. That just gets that faded blue. Now all the colors I think are mixing really well together. Let's take out the saturation on the purples and on the magentas. So that's it on the color mixer. We might want to go back to the reds and see if anything looks better, but that's about right. +2, +6. Let's actually go +8. That looks good to me. So let's go on to our effects. We can get some texture, some clarity, and just a little bit of dehaze. That's just going to sharpen our image a little bit. Now I also want to go and do gradient tool. And we can just draw it a big one. We don't need to make it super fancy, but at least having one over her face I think is good. So there we go. Those are all the edits that we did in Lightroom. Here's before and here's after. Definitely an edgier image, and I'm really excited to work on this in Photoshop. Okay, we are now ready to start editing in Photoshop. Let's right-click the image and then select Edit in Photoshop. Okay, great. Now we have our image opened in Photoshop. The first thing that I want to do is duplicate the background. Call this Patch. Next, let's add a layer. Call that Paint. We want to add a curves layer. Bring it up just a little bit on the curve. Invert the mask right here by hitting Control I. So we want this to be black. And let's call this Dodge. So then we can duplicate our Dodge and just call this Burn. And then we want to change this to be darker so those shadows really come out. So now we can select everything that we just created, and then we can group them, and let's call this Skin Retouch. Alright, now we can open up Skin Retouch. Let's go to Patch and select our Patch tool. We want to zoom in a bit, and we can start patching her skin. Now there's a little trick that I used because we're a little overexposed. It's hard to see everything on her skin, but I want to go over to black and white, and let's bring this right above Burn. We're gonna bring the red dial down, and then we're going to bring the yellow down also. And this just allows me to see those imperfections in her skin much better. So if I zoom in, now I can really see where the texture in her skin needs to be repaired. So I'm using my Wacom tablet, and I'm going to select Patch. I'm gonna start patching her face. And the way we patch is we just circle an area that we don't like, and then we drag it to a spot that's nice and smooth. So you see right there, I took away the blemish, and it also deals with color and texture. So I'm going to fast forward through this part. I'll see you when I'm finished. Okay, so I did a lot of patching. I also used the spot healing brush tool to take away her hair. So I removed that little reflection bokeh bit out of there. You're really gonna chomp at her hair kind of hard, and then you want to use the eraser tool on like a low opacity or low flow, so it just looks a little smoother. But this is before and after. So really big difference with the patch. Now let's move on to paint. And with paint, it's pretty simple. We just use the color select tool, and we select the part of the skin that we like, and then it saves the color right here. Then we can choose our brush. Make sure you're on soft round and put the hardness at 0%. And then for the opacity, bring it down to about 5%. So the way this works is we select the color select tool, we choose our brush after selecting the part of the skin that we like, and then we just paint that color on to the skin. And you just want to select the spot you like and you're really just trying to blend the skin like this. Now let's put the opacity to 50%. That looks good. So let's pull it out. Now this is before paint and after paint. So her skin just looks a little smoother, a little more contoured. Before the patch, before the paint, and then after patch and paint. So really subtle details that make a big difference. Now let's go on to dodge and burn. So I want to select my brush. We'll keep it at about 5%. Let's turn on the black and white, and then make sure you're on the white color right here, not black. So we can start dodging those highlights now. Okay, let's look at before and after for our dodge. Here's before and here's after, so just a bit brighter. Now let's start burning. So we want to darken up all those shadows. Okay, so this is before the burn right here, and this is after. All right, so I think both the dodge and the burn are a little bit too much. So let's just bring the opacity down to 50% for the dodge and 50% for the burn. And I think that looks perfect. Let's close the skin retouch, and now we can just see before and after. The next thing that we want to do is enhance her eyes. So let's create a new folder and call it Eye Enhance. So in Eye Enhance, what I want to do is add a vibrance filter, and let's bring up the vibrance and the saturation a bunch. Then I want to zoom in to her eyes. Select your brush at a flow of 100%, and then you want to hit Control I to invert the mask, and then draw the saturation into her eye. Great. Next, for the eye enhance, we can add selective color. Let's go to the neutrals and see what we can do there. Okay, I like that kind of light brown, and then darkening that up a bit. So let's hit Control I, and then we can paint that into the eye as well. Okay, great. Then I want to make her eyes maybe look a little more white. And to do that, let's just add a levels layer. Let's make this brighter like this. And then we're going to invert that. Let's zoom in, select our brush, and go on the eye. And it's going to look really weird, but we can bring the flow down, but we really are going to lower the opacity anyways of this. Let's zoom out. Okay, obviously it looks really fake, so we want to go to the levels and bring those down to like 4%, something really low. Let's just see what 10% of that looks like. So yeah, just brightening them a little bit, I think that's fine. So that's before and after on the eyes. Great, so far we've made her eyes pop a little bit, and we can even bring the opacity on the whole effect down to like 80%. Okay, the last thing that I want to do is just add another folder. Let's call this Final Touches. and I just want to add one levels adjustment layer in here, brighten it up just a bit, and then darken those blacks a hint as well. So this is before and after, just looks a little cleaner. And I think that's really it. That's all I want to do with this photo. So this is the photo final edit, and I think it turned out really great. If I could just do one thing, I would probably go and work on the hair a little bit more. Like this piece right here needs to come out. So I'm gonna do that really quick. Okay, great. I think that looks a lot better. And I just used the eraser tool to remove some of that patching.